Hello everybody, welcome to the last, for some time, for our new player guides for Arkham Horror the card game, where we look at each investigator and build a deck with cards from the core set and the cycle in which they came. We've done it! We'll revisit this series again when Innsmouth Conspiracy cycle is fully completed, and then again once the next cycle is completed, and then probably again, who knows how things are gonna be by then. But for now, we are gonna talk about Colorful Lola. The first Lola deck tech we did was neutral Lola, focusing on not having to play the role switching part of the game, while this deck is more about good cards from colors. Just play the good stuff. If you haven't seen one of these videos, as I said, we're going to build this with 2 copies of the core set and the cycle in which she came, so Path to Carcosa. If you only have 1 copy of the core set, we recommend you pick up another copy or proxy the cards you don't have. They will help you win more if your deck is more consistent. And last but not least, some of these cards are on the taboo list. If you're just starting out and you're wondering what the taboo list is and if you should play with it, don't. Just play with the cards as printed for the time being, and when you feel like you're bored of them and you want to have an excuse to not just put Machete in your deck as your blue fighter, start doing the taboo list then. We're going to just briefly touch on Lola. I'll link in the YouTube description down below not only the Arkham to be deck list, but also to our previous Lola video where we're going to discuss Lola in more detail. So a quick summary of Lola. Does anyone want to quickly sum her up, or should I do it?
She's got a lot of 3s.
She's got a lot of 3s.
She's got very low health and sanity, 6 and 6. That's like hardly any at all. We can only play with cards that are in our role, or play cards from our hand that are in our role. Every turn we get to, as a lightning bolt effect, switch our role to a different one. This is kind of central to how she plays the game.
Yep.
Our unique asset, we've got a 0-cost fast event that you switch your role to one of them, and then you get to play a card from your hand of that role, or the next card you play from your hand of that role costs you 3 less.
And you get
which
to draw
is quite
a card.
powerful. Yeah. And you get to draw a card. Mm-hmm. How much better than emergency cash is that? And then we've got our weakness is Crisis of Identity, which can be fairly crippling. So when we reveal it, we discard all the cards we control of our current role. It's worth noting, the cards in your hand are not considered to be under your control, even though I think the rulebook says they are. They're not, you don't control them. But you will discard all of your assets.
Mm-hmm.
Then you discard the top card of your deck and become that role.
Yeah.
It's quite a doozy.
Lola also has a deck building requirement where of at least 3 different classes she needs 7 cards. So Travis, who built this deck, he chose Guardian, Seeker, and Mystic for that.
Yeah, they just had good cards in those colors.
Yeah.
The previous colorless version of this one was built to like minimize Crisis of Identity. Where like if you draw it, you're like, whatever, I can just kind of keep playing the game normally. Whereas this one, you're probably gonna get reamed by it.
Yeah. This one, when your Crisis of Identity comes, you're like, well, let's say goodbye to 1/3 of my things.
Yeah, but like the deck is also built that you can kind of pivot and just like do something else good.
Yeah. That's kind of what it is. It's like you're going to see a lot of crossover. Like we have essentially 3 damage dealers, right? But you're not going to want to have your 45 automatic Machete and Shriveling out. And then like...
You got 5 damage dealers.
5? What are the other ones? The
45s, Machetes, and the Shriveling.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 3 cards. We got 5.
Oh, you were saying 3 different
3
ones.
unique cards, 5 cards in the actual deck. But like it's one of those things where like you should be expecting a Crisis of Identity to come at any time, so you might not want to stay in blue. You're going to probably want to be purple for your the phase, for the Mythos phase, but like you're going to have to do a lot of adapting and improvising with this deck. Why don't we just get down to the cards individually, and we'll break them down starting with the core set. Travis, why don't you take these ones?
Alright, 45 automatic is one of the weapons available to you. With this Lola deck, you want to be either blue and killing stuff, or yellow and getting clues, or purple if something went wrong. I.e., you drew your Crisis of Identity. Your thing is wrong, Justin. The list does not have one Crisis of Identity, it has two.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Just put a 2 there. Here, I can do it right now.
But 45 automatic, you shoot people. It gives you more punch. What more could you want? Flashlight gets clues. Clues are always good. Flashlight you can use no matter what role you are. So, to me, that sounds like it's always good. Machete also gives you plus punch and extra damage. Once again, if you're trying to kill stuff, that's good. Incredible, Justin. And then we got magnifying glass. When you're yellow, 3 book probably isn't going to cut it, so having more book is good.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sometimes playing Lola, though, it does feel like you have 21 Crisis of Identities.
Yeah, you actually, her character ability is the Crisis of Identity. Because one thing I said in the previous videos, and I'll say again here, there's going to be times when you're like, all right, I need to be blue or yellow to do something on this turn. But I also would prefer, because of this water protection in my hand, to be purple during the Mythos phase. But you can't have it all. You only get to switch once a turn unless you are really good at drawing your improvisations when you need to. Shriveling is a backup damage dealer that doesn't take up a hand slot, so it's not competing with your machete, your magnifying glass, your 45 automatic. You also
I want to touch on the shriveling real quick here.
Yeah.
It's actually really important to how this deck works, where clues, if you lose your magnifying glass and your Dr. Milan, it's very rare that you're like, I need to get clues this turn or die.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But if you get engaged with a monster, and then, if you draw your Crisis of Identity, and you have to throw away all your blue assets, and then you draw a monster in the Mythos phase, that's something that needs to get dealt with now.
Yeah.
And unless you have Mana Dexterity and Expected Courage, you're probably not going to be able to evade it, and that's what the Shriveling is here for. You can just play it, and then it sits there as a backup plan.
Yeah,
that way when if that monster does spawn, then you're not screwed.
As you can see, also Shriveling's a one-of, so you kind of just, as Travis said in his guidebook, cards where you can just set it and forget it until you need it is really nice, and Shriveling with that playstyle in mind would be very good. On that note, Holy Rosary will help your Shriveling get better, but also will protect you from the Mythos deck by making you have 4 brain, which is really nice. As you can see, with stuff like Holy Rosary and Dr. Milan and then Beat Cop when we get to it in the upgrades, getting 4s in your stats is a good goal to achieve with Lola, especially with a Lola that kind of wants to do everything.
It's also worth noting that all of the yellow cards mostly work if you're not yellow.
Yes, yeah.
With the exception of Dr. Milan's reaction ability. You can't play that unless you are yellow. But
still, the extra book is really nice from Dr. Milan, even if you don't get a resource from him every time you investigate because you're in a different color. He gives you resources and books. Your deck's also pretty pricey as well, so being able to be in yellow, grab cards and grab resources when you're grabbing clues, and then play expensive cards, your assets and stuff like that would be really nice. Drawn to the Flame will get you clues, and I think it's secretly probably the strongest card in this deck. I'm going to just say that, because you don't need to test anything. It's just there, and you can get it, and you can get clues and draw a card, and Lola's going to be pretty good at dealing with cards from the encounter deck, assuming it's not an enemy and you don't have anything else in play for you to interact with or fight that enemy with.
Yeah, plus, the scariest card in the game is already in your deck.
Yeah, exactly. The
scariest card in the game do to you?
Is your Investigator.
Yeah, if you're playing Lola and you play Drawn to the Flame, no matter what you draw, that's probably the most efficient thing you could do.
Yeah, exactly. Bryn, why don't you take these ones?
Alright, so we've got Emergency Cash, 0 in a card for 3 resources. Like they were saying, the deck is pretty expensive. We're going to need them. We got Ward of Protection. I shouldn't need to explain this one, but we will anyway. This just cancels 1 card drawn from the Mythos deck at the cost of 1 of your sanity. And a resource and a card, I suppose.
Yeah, on that note of Bryn saying I probably don't need to explain this card, we're assuming that if you're a new player And you've played a few of the investigators. You might have seen a few of our other videos before being like, you know who I want to try first? Lola HAYES. She has 3 in all of her stats. That's incredible. I recommend, if this is your first time playing the game and you don't know why Water Protection would be good or why Guts is going to be good, if you never heard one of our spiels, go to one of the core set investigators and watch our videos on them. And then after a few games, come back to Lola.
Yeah.
She's very difficult to make work.
Yeah, I will apologize for that. I'm assuming you've watched some of the other videos and you might not have.
If you haven't, though,
but yeah, like
let
if
us
you
know in
haven't,
the
maybe,
comments, and tell us why you want to try Lola so bad.
Yeah. But yeah, we just get to cancel one of the game's cards, so no matter what it does, instead it does 1 horror to us. We can't cancel monsters, but that's okay. We've got machetes and guns and even a little bit of magic. We've got a Vicious Blow. This is one of the best general blue cards in the game, I think. It just commits for a fist, you get +1 to your test. And if you succeed, you deal an extra damage. There are a lot of enemies that the game tries to make difficult by giving them an odd amount of health. Like 3, because most weapons deal 2 damage. This just lets you kill them for 1 action instead of 2.
Heck yeah.
And then does somebody else want to take Guts, or am I on that one too?
You could take the last Guts.
All right. So Guts is one of the best colorless cards in the game that you can play, because the majority of the time when the game is attacking you, it is doing so by making you test your brain and doing something bad to you based on how badly you fail. So Guts just gives you +2 to that test, and then if you succeed, you draw a card to replace it. So it's effectively free, assuming that you pass the test, which at a 5, you probably, well, you might not definitely do it, but you got a good shot.
Yeah.
And a lot of them also do damage to you based on how badly you fail. So even if you fail, that +2 still counts.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like Grasping Hands. It deals damage to you for each... Oh, that's your foot.
Yeah, that one's foot.
What is it? The body one? I don't even know the name of that card. Rotting Remains. That's it.
Rotting Remains.
That one, it's a brain 3 test. For every point you fail by, you take a horror. Having 5 means that even if you fail, you'll probably only fail by 1. And taking 1 horror when you only have 6 is a lot nicer than taking 3.
Yeah. In this deck, we can also use it offensively because we've got Shriveling.
Yeah. Then there's the rest. Lola HAYES is running all of them because she has 3 in all of her stats. They put her up to 5 for all of them, which is a very respectable, even like a great score for testing. And most importantly, she can play them no matter what role she's in. So if you're building a Lola deck and you don't have 2 of each of these skills, especially with a limited collection. I think with a limited collection, it's a must. There are some alternatives that we're going to get to later in the upgrades that you can use instead of these if things go south for you. But these cards are going to be quintessential to your deck. Like they're going to be core to making sure you can not be afraid of any test you might find. Travis, why don't you take the 3 Path Carcosa cards that are in this deck?
Okay. So True Grit is here because I needed a 7th blue card. And that's about it. This one provides Meat Soak, whereas like the Holy Rosaries provide Brain Soak, so that kind of balances out, I guess. That's about it for that. The 2 yellow cards that were here that make us have 7 were Logical Reasoning and No Stone Unturned. Logical Reasoning got the go-ahead to be 2 copies because it is Guts. The text on this card is like nice, but yeah, it's Guts.
That's fair. It's worth noting you can fire off your No Stone Unturned early on before you have any assets to try to find a Crisis of Identity, and just discard nothing.
That's some hot tech.
It is some hot tech. Yeah, No Stone Unturned is just like, it's just a good yellow card. You can make one of your teammates do something better instead of you trying to struggle to do things. You can continue to struggle to do things. You can use Defiant Crisis Identity, like Bren mentioned.
One thing to note as well, Travis is absolutely right that Logical Reasoning is Guts. You do need to be in a yellow role to play it, so you can't like to commit it to a test. Just to be aware of, it also cares about committing cards when it comes to your role, which...
Yeah, why wouldn't it?
Why, honestly, I think if that wasn't there, we could have like a good Lola. That's the part that I'm like, it really hangs me up on her. But
there's a lot of things that like they're like 1 degree away from being good.
As we said in the last video, I believe it was Bryn who spearheaded this, but if she was too good, like there would be no she had they have to make her weaker in all regards because she's neutral, right? Like she has access to everything, so if she can do things too good, she just kind of like eats up everything, right? Like all actors do. If we give them too much credit, they'll make it all about them.
Yeah, but it's okay
Can't
when
let them think
researchers
they're
and
too
reporters
important.
do that good.
Upgraded B-Cop. Let's get the upgrades from the core set. This gives you +1 fist, and it deals testless damage to an enemy, which is always a nice thing. Of note, you still need to be in blue to have that lightning bolt ability to be used, but you still get that +1 fist no matter what. But if you are fighting and using your fist, odds are you're going to be in blue, as is. Magnifying Glass is an excellent, as Bruno was saying, a secret card that you can just set and get the advantage out of it. Because you don't really need to, you can return it to your hand, but most of the times just having that +1 book while investigating is huge. Especially with Dr. Milan Christopher. Getting those having 5 book to investigate is sweet. It's also, the upgraded one is just cheaper and you can return it to your hand, but once again, that doesn't really matter too much. Elder Sign Amulet and Bulletproof Vest give you 10 health and 10 sanity. Wow.
Elder Sign Amulet's also a guts.
It is also a guts, and I guess the Bulletproof Vest is an overpower, which can be relevant too. Especially if you're in a situation where your Crisis of Identity said, I don't want to shoot people anymore, and you threw your gun away.
The Magnifying Glass pickup ability is nice because after you finish investigating a location, you can pick it up before the end of your turn in case you drop Crisis of Identity.
That is true, actually. that is a good point. Will to Survive. It's a bit pricey and a bit... Travis said in his guide, I don't know what he exactly said, but his guide had a good statement about Will to Survive, but basically this makes it so you can do no tests for a turn, which is pretty sweet with Lola, because your stats are going to be high enough that most tests on average are going to be 3, so you'll be able to pass things even without any help, and with the help you'll be able to pass pretty much anything. Travis, I'll let you take these guys.
Ambush is here because it's testless damage, and again, it's one of those cards you can just put into play, and then you get to ignore it because it's forced.
Mm-hmm.
Which means it's an ability that has to trigger even if you're not blue, I'm pretty sure. Forewarned is just extra copies of Ward of Protection, as is Test of Will.
Yep. As is Ward of
colors.
Protection.
I would only go for the Test of Will, like if you were on the Will to Survive plan, but it's another option. Forewarned is pretty good because you're going to be in yellow occasionally.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then Ward of Protection 2 is better than Ward of Protection 1.
Unless you're playing solo.
Yeah.
But solo Lola, dude, you got my respect if you're running solo Lola. Sola. Shortcut, as we learned, this one's really nice because the location gains the lightning bolt ability, so you can use it even when you're not in your yellow role. And other players can use it too, so they're like, thanks Lola for doing something, we really appreciate it. Key of Yeast is pretty sick with Lola. I mean, it costs 5 here, which is pretty pricey. I think it costs 10 in its tabooed version. But basically, this can make you as 6 with all your stats. That's pretty sick. Honestly, and it's also neutral, so it's not going to get eaten up by your Crisis of Identity.
You never have to throw it away.
Yeah, so... my advice to you, if you do want to play Lola, and get the Key of Yeast. Put that into play. Have 6 in all your stats. Seems good. And then, the last but not least, Travis has a little note about the whole desperate cycle of cards. There's 1 for each stat. But you can only commit to a skill test if you have 3 or fewer remaining sanity. So you don't really want to put them in. You don't really want to. You don't want to put them into your starting deck. But if you're in a campaign where you've taken a lot of mental trauma, this is a nice thing that you can put in to upgrade your skills if you wanted to upgrade those, or change other ththings around to get the advantage out of them.
Yeah, maybe you're tired of throwing away all your assets and stuff, and you just want more neutral cards.
Yeah, just halfway through being like, you know what, I'm gonna go to the neutral Lola build, which
Yeah, like, man, this sucks.
I do think the neutral Lola build that we did is better, but as Travis said in his write-up, there's a lot of ways you can build Lola. The most common ones are neutral and like the best cards of the colors they have available to you. But I still do think the more you can just set and forget and not actively use, the better.
Yeah.
Cool. That's Lola. And that's
Easy.
our Investigator Guide series until the Innsmouth Conspiracy is finished. Thanks for watching, everybody. Next Saturday in this time slot, we are going to be starting our Archetype series, where we're going to break down different archetypes you can play in the game, as well as provide examples of the cards for that archetype, and then a small deck list about it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one, and as always, GG's.